this chair's a bit squeaky. Hope it doesn't squeak throughout the whole video. Hi, my name is David. I am currently based in Marlborough, New Zealand. And in July of this year, 2025, I will be 10 years sober and in recovery from drugs and alcohol. I wanted to start a YouTube channel because for me, YouTube as a platform has kept me company. It is one of the things I turn on when I am just washing the dishes or doing the housework or doing work, and just something to keep me company. And along the way, I have discovered and continue to rediscover some wonderful content on YouTube from people who are in recovery, who have many years sober, have very little amounts of years sober, and who are inspired by their journey. And it's just awesome to listen to those stories. And I think I just have always wanted to give back, I suppose, to the platform, and I suppose begin a dialogue here and see where it takes me. Okay, so forgive the really rudimentary lighting setup and all of that stuff. I am a photographer. I do a little bit of video here and there, but this is all really new to me, and I'm sure I will get better and better as time goes on. If I continue to post more videos, who knows? So in 2015, October 2015, I was admitted to a publicly funded rehab here in Marlborough, in Blenheim, called St. Mark's. The proper term, I guess, would be Alcohol Drug Treatment Centre. It was there that I began my journey. I never intended that I would ever end up, I don't think anyone does, anyway, end up in it was not on my list of things to do with my life. I was 38 years old and had been drinking and drugging for the previous 21 years, and doing so quite heavily. By that time, I guess you could say I was a morning drinker. The first thing that I would do would be to wake up and sip or scull a mug of bourbon. Loved brown liquor. It was my favorite thing, bourbon or whiskey. To get me going in the morning, cigarettes and whatever other stimulants I might have had on hand and what I could afford. And it had taken a lot from my life. I had been in multiple relationships where my partner had left me because of my alcohol abuse, and I still didn't get it. You know, I still didn't think I had a problem. For me, I had an idea of what an alcoholic was or a drug addict was, and it wasn't me. You know, it was always somebody else. And I didn't think that I would be drinking forever. In fact, I knew how damaging it was to my life. I just wasn't doing anything meaningful about it. I thought that one day the willpower and the inspiration would come to me and I would give all of this up. Right. I'm not sure how much time I want to devote to how I started drinking, but safe to say, by the time I entered treatment, I had no real friendly place to go. I was homeless, unemployable, because I was drinking in the morning till night and passing out at work, making huge mistakes. Making a real mess of my life. So here I was, homeless, jobless, penniless, and really, really sick. So at the time when I walked in, I thought, wow, I had lost the game of life. This was the end of the road for my life. I didn't have the willpower to give this thing up. And that devastated me. I thought this was the end of the line, and I would always be known as that guy who went to rehab. My life was over. Little did I know that my life was about to begin in earnest, in a new and joyful, wonderful way. So I'll just put that out there. and I do promise in later videos to discuss my time at treatment and why it worked. So this is more of an introduction, I suppose, to my journey of recovery. Yeah, so as I said, this July I'll be reaching 10 years sober. I look back and I have thought about how I got here, and people always asking, man, you must have some willpower or something like that. You must be really strong to not want to drink. And to be honest with you, I couldn't have gotten here without the help that I really needed at the time, and the ongoing help I continue to receive from my community, from the fellowship like AA, my sponsor. Yes, I still believe that AA is a superbly powerful organization that does save lives, and I honor that by still attending meetings and still having a sponsor. So looking back, when anyone asks me, oh, you must have been really strong to get here, I'm like, no way, I couldn't have done it without anyone else. Now, let's get something straight. At the time, before I actually went into rehab, I didn't believe that I needed help. I thought I could still do this by myself. Indeed, when I walked into St. Mark's here in Marlborough, I actually thought, well, this might sort me out for a little bit. I'll get sober, maybe work out a little bit, get fit, and then just go back to managing my drinking again, and drinking like normal people. And that was not the journey I was going to take, not at all. In fact, I would come to learn in treatment that I was... There's a saying, one is too much and 1,000 is never enough. And that was me. I will constantly, always continue drinking after the first drink, without a doubt. I know I don't have the capacity to stop. Once I start, that's it. I will keep going until the end. And that's something that I came to know about myself in rehab, or treatment, sorry. And during that time, a real light turned on for me. I realized that I would have to go throughout life without alcohol or drugs, and do this life thing somehow, without what I had come to lean on as a way of surviving the world. In AA they say alcohol gets you into the middle of life, and that's exactly what alcohol did for me. In fact, I was a bit of a late bloomer, I suppose. I came to know alcohol at the ripe old age of 17. Look, I had a dad who drank a lot, and I did not like what alcohol did to adults. Growing up, I saw it as quite a disruptive force in my life, and I knew that wasn't for me. So while I'd reached high school and my friends and peers were experimenting with smoking, drinking, doing a little bit of pot here and there, a little bit of weed, I was that teetotal guy, you know, like, and so 13, 14, 15, you know, came and went, and I just didn't want to have anything to do with that kind of life. And so while my friends were all going to parties and, you know, doing what you do when you're a teenager, experimenting, that just wasn't for me. It wasn't until my father passed away when I was 16, he was only 41, that I suppose things really changed for me, and I don't know what it was. I want to say it was grieving, but it was more a loss of faith in the world, faith in myself, a deep sadness for everything around me. And it wasn't until sometime later where I was 17, so he died when I was 16, and it was 17, and I said, oh, fuck it. I'll probably have to bleep that out. I was just like, let's do this. Let's try this thing. You know, all of my other friends were doing it, and they seemed to be having a great time. So it was a night in Christchurch. We were down in Victoria Park under the law courts at the time, and just hanging out. We had a guy who looked a little bit older than the rest of us. Just remember, this was the 90s, the mid-90s, so the drinking age at the time was 20. So you kind of had to look 20, but we knew of an alcohol store close by where we were congregating that were pretty lenient on minors. I won't name the store. But anyway, I do remember we all gave him $5 each. He went to the store, big trench coat and a hat, tried to, you know, look staunch, and he came back with these plastic bags all clinking away with these bottles of Asti Spumante, which was a terrible, cheap sparkling wine. And I started drinking. My other friends started drinking as well, and I was like, oh, this thing isn't working, you know. Nevertheless, it was all very exciting, you know, like this is quite a new thing. Everyone was giggling, having a good time, you know, it felt good. And, you know, I kept drinking, and I was like, this isn't working, nothing's working, it's weird. And I think I got like halfway through the bottle and, you know, just talking to friends, not really thinking about it, and then all of a sudden it was just this feeling just came over me, and it's hard to describe when it's the first time. It was this feeling like, I kind of describe it like this choir kind of opened up in my chest, and it was like, ah, and all of a sudden I felt totally free. And I remember at the time, actually, I didn't realize how anxious and scared I was generally with life. I physically, this is what happened. Like I had no idea I had such terrible posture, because when that alcohol kicked in, I sort of suddenly straightened up and my shoulders went back and I felt really confident, and this feeling of it's okay kind of came over me. It wasn't just it's okay, it was this profound, almost spiritual experience and I was like, this is the answer, this is the solution. I had no idea I had been I suppose living under this umbrella of anxiety and fear for so long, until I took my first drink, and I was like, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And you know, 17, that cool night in Christchurch, I discovered my calling, and little did I know that this would take me on a 20 plus year journey through so much, nightmares, good times, obviously, what I thought were good times, and despair. You know, that night in that park, I walked away from an old part of myself. I left them there, and I didn't rediscover that person until I got sober 20 plus years later and entered into a treatment centre and to get the help that I really needed. So, I mean, yeah, when I look back now, what I needed was help as a young person. I was, and I found the solution to what I wanted in alcohol and drugs. You know, and eventually, like, drugs would come later, and cigarettes and all of the other bits and bobs, that kind of the paraphernalia that goes around, that kind of lifestyle. And, you know, it's sad to think that I look back and I've got a fair amount of hurt, a lot of heartbreak for myself and the people around me. The people that I hurt, people that I took from, I lied to, the dramas I caused in other people's lives and my own, the wasted potential of all of that. Having said that, if I hadn't been through all of that and then come out the other end and recovered, I couldn't sit here today and talk about how extraordinary that journey has been for me and what I have learned. And, you know, I still get people asking me, you know, like, how did you do it? You know, like, your story is quite inspiring. Like, what? I have a brother. I have a sister, a mum that is struggling with drugs and alcohol. I am struggling with drugs and alcohol. You know, and I guess, you know, I'm not much of a person to offer that kind of advice, but at least I can share my story, and at least I can offer some kind of hope that it is possible to recover and get sober and actually live a pretty awesome life. Today, you know, 10 years ago, as I said, I had no money. I was really sick, and lost the trust of all my friends and family. They wanted the best for me, sure, but they were like, this is enough, go away, go and get better. Yeah, I had nothing. And today I am kind of living the life of my dreams in a way. I mean, it kind of, in a way, I'm just living a regular adult life with all of its problems and anxieties and fears. And all of that stuff really doesn't go away. The fear doesn't go away. The anxiety and all of that stuff, you just learn to, I want to say live with it, but it's not really like that. You kind of learn from it. And there's still ongoing, you know. Yeah, I've kind of lost my train of thought now, and I kind of wanted to. So today I take pictures for a living, but I never ever thought that I would actually be able to do this for a living. I didn't think I'd be able to buy my own house from doing a job that I loved. I never thought I would regain the trust and faith of my friends and my family. I never thought I'd have a respect in my community. I never thought I'd be able to walk into a room and someone would smile. You know, because in the past, I walked into a room and people looked worried. Not for me, but how I would behave, you know, what I would do. And so I was that much of a tearaway, you know. Yeah, so it's been amazing. And so I really hope, you know, this I can continue to share on this platform and talk about recovery stuff and get into a little bit more detail about my time in treatment, my time using, and it shares some really cool, amazing stories about other people's recovery as well, if they'll let me. And yeah, and I'm just really grateful. So thank you so much for actually taking the time to listen to this. I did not prepare anything, not a script or anything like that. I just kind of started talking. In fact, this was supposed to be just a test. And so, yeah, that's all I got to say. Thank you very much. Until next time.